Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Builders Board podcast. I'm your host, Tom Houghton, and I'm super excited to be joined today by Heather Tankersley from Tankersley Construction, based in California. Heather is co-owner and vice president of operations. She's also a mom to two awesome kids and co-owns the business with her husband, Steve. Heather joined the company full-time in 2019, but before that, Heather managed complex electrical projects for some of the largest electrical contractors in the United States. She's a wealth of knowledge, so I'm super honored that she joined us for a conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about working with your spouse, leadership, growth, and how you continue to learn as an owner or an operator in a business. So lots of great things discussed. Please welcome Heather Tankersley. All right, well, welcome to the podcast, Heather. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, so our guests are so excited to hear about you and your company, and we also want to talk about our action item today, which we'll get to in a little bit. But first, let's start off with an introduction about Tankersley.
Yeah, Heather Tankersley, co-owner of Tankersley Construction. Our office is based out of Rancho Cordova, California. It's about 30 minutes east of Sacramento. My husband and I started the business 6 years ago. I saw a need. We both came from commercial construction. Didn't see anybody really doing that great of a job in our area in residential, and thought, hey, let's take these practices and what we know of how to build and build efficiently and apply it to residential. And so we've grown from there. My husband started out. I stayed at my job and supported the business. And I came over full time in 2019, and I run all of the operations and the construction build team at our company.
That's fantastic. And you guys started, I think, in 2017, right? That's what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just in a few short years, you guys have had explosive growth. Great success. So well done. Kudos to you.
Thank you. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably hasn't felt like just like a hockey stick up though.
No, I mean, I joked. I had a call with our business coach yesterday, and I joked how, we've been in business for 6 years, and we had this thing of COVID right in the middle of it, right? Really
Right.
makes you reassured to be a business owner.
You're like, I've made a big mistake. I need to choose a different profession now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
It was hard. We just threw that in there.
Yeah, that's good. So we got a lot of things to talk about today on the episode. I want to talk first and foremost, though. I always do this with all husbands and wives that I talk to. Working with your spouse is a different ball game. Some people that I know are like, there is no way. Some people are like, absolutely. I mean, my spouse is like my best friend, so I feel like we could totally do it. But Tell me about the challenges. How did you guys set the framework for that relationship? Because that's a big commitment, because, your whole world becomes your business and your spouse is right there with you in it.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that is cool about Steve and I, right? We're best friends. We both met on a construction site, so it's kind of fitting. We end up running our own construction company. And we both came from commercial construction, and we were just tired of being gone all the time and traveling a bunch. And so it's like, well, let's do this, but let's do this for ourselves. And I think the thing that makes us a good team is what one person's good at is not what the other person is good at. Steve does all the sales. He does all the estimating. That's not my jam. I don't really like that part. I like the build part.
Yeah.
So we very much just stay in our lanes, and we try not to overlap too much. I'm very much a process-oriented person. Steve is not so much a process-oriented person.
Yeah.
So we just try to stay in the things that we're both really good at. And I think that's what makes the company good. We put both of our efforts together, and that's what's helped us be able to grow and be able to be a good team. But it doesn't mean we don't talk about work at 10:30 at night, and it
Sure.
carries over, and our kids hear about it, or our kids will ask, do you have a meeting at Water Glen today, Mom? And they know, all of our job names and
Sure.
stuff. So
Yeah.
they're growing up in the business too.
Yeah. I think that's a great insight too for kids to see, like, parents working together and it's working and the company is thriving. That's such a great image for the future generation to have this. Like, first and foremost, they've seen their parents, like, who they're looking up to, run a successful business. So again, kudos to you for doing that. I'm sure it's not always rosy and, fantastic, but.
Oh yeah, no, it bleeds over into, we try to keep it separate. It bleeds over into personal life, probably way too much, but
sure.
We also really like what we do. So it's kind of hard for us to not talk about it, because we like our job and we like our company and our clients and the people we get to work with. And so it's hard not to talk about it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think if we pull back and like look at leadership in general, anytime you have two leaders working together, you've done the exact right thing, which is focus on what you're good at and what you enjoy. And then that way both of you can be successful in that. It's kind of the right people, right seats. And it seems like you both have figured that out. And, fortunately it's worked out for you that it doesn't sound like there's too much overlap potentially, or too much desire to be like, ooh, I kind of want to do that.
Oh, and it's very much we have the phrase of "you're driving in my lane," right? So when there's tension between us, or the team can see it, it's clearly because one of us is driving in the other one's lane of, I'm going to tell you how you should sequence your job or what's going on this production piece, and so that's when we get into that.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to take a step back. Like, let's appreciate what the other one's doing and reevaluate that. But it's a huge dynamic. It's a challenge for us. But it's a fun challenge and one that we enjoy together.
Good. Well, let's talk a little bit about the team. Obviously, having a husband-wife co-owner situation has an impact on the team. And obviously, you're overseeing production. So talk about that a little bit. Share, like, what's your, how do you lead that team when you're looking at production? How does that play into the fact that obviously, Steve's responsible for getting those sales to you guys, that handoff process? Give us a little more insight into that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so we currently have 11 employees, 3 carpenters in the field, 2 PMs, an estimator, an assistant project manager, and what we call a production specialist. He handles all of our warranty, our fleet maintenance, those kind of pieces to help the field run.
Yeah.
For production side, our 2 project managers, very seasoned, very skilled. We, I kind of call it like the hybrid lead carpenter system. Based on the size of the job, we have 2 carpenters that fill that role of being a lead. So an on-site superintendent, if you want to call it that. So their responsibility, given the correct project, right value, the build type, we do both new build and we do whole house, kind of complicated high-end remodels. So for us, we'll park a lead on site if the job warrants that. That lead's responsible for ensuring that we're meeting quality, coordination with trades, overlap in scope, making sure that we're building to design standards, those kind of things that designers set for us.
Yeah.
And then the project manager is responsible for keeping the production side going. So material orders, making sure that we've got all the subs lined up, schedules executed, those kind of things. So we run kind of I call it a hybrid lead carpenter system. Sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not.
Sure. That's good. I like that. I think in getting to know you a little bit and working with you guys on and off for a while, I think what I've enjoyed about you is that you're not afraid to try something different. Some people feel like, oh no, we're just going to do it like this way. And it seems like you guys have come up with these kind of creative solutions. Like you said, like this hybrid lead carpenter system. Obviously you have people that can do both, right? Both roles. Kind of like overseeing, but then also potentially kind of self-performing. Do they get to that level of self-performing the work, or do they just make sure that they're on site to get people there and, make sure things are happening?
Yeah, it's kind of out of kind of 2 dynamics to that challenge. Most of our carpenters in the field, they're installing. The only thing we self-perform is finish trim. So we'll do doors, we'll do cabinets, custom millwork, baseboards, casing, those kind of pieces. And we saw the need in our company because we had really skilled guys, skilled in their ability to build, but also an ability to help manage that coordination effort and just the opportunity that was there. They wanted more. They wanted to keep growing and maybe eventually they're a bags off situation, especially as the trades, it's like they get older, maybe they don't want to swing a hammer all the time. So we kind of saw it out of a need, both from a build challenge and then just also our people and our team and what they wanted. And I think that's part of making sure you're listening to what your employees need and what your team needs in general. And so it kind of came out of both dynamics. And I think we just saw this great opportunity. I'm lucky in my past life working in commercial construction. I would have a group of, 2 superintendents, there would be an assistant superintendent, there would be, maybe 3 project engineers and a project manager. So I come from a very big build team on one project. And so taking those exposures of what those teams look like and applying that to the jobs that we're building, because some of the jobs that we're building right now, I mean, I might as well go build a hospital or a school, because some of them, there's so many intricate details with roof lines and weatherproofing and 3 different roof systems coming together, and just as complicated as a commercial build, but on a residential home. So there, that need is there, and it's just finding the right person, like you said, in the right seat and the right knowledge to go execute.
Yeah. So obviously you, again, have that background in commercial. What's one tip that you wouldn't mind sharing with the audience of like, okay, I learned this, like you said, obviously you have a lot of people running a commercial job. I know there's probably some listeners out there right now being like, Tom, my team can't be that big, or I don't know if I want my team to be that big. So besides team and obviously having the right people in the right seats, what's a tip that you could give our audience about like something that you learned from commercial where you're like, we have to do this as we do our builds?
Yeah, so we do what's called pull scheduling, which is very common in commercial construction. We do pull scheduling on every job that we run. If you check out our YouTube channel, Tankersley Construction, we have a whole video where we put it together. We brought all of our subs in for a large custom home we were building. We don't necessarily get all of the sub trades together in a room to move Post-it notes, but we do implement a pull schedule system when we go to execute on our job. And when we set our construction schedule, and just briefly for what that is what's your longest lead item that's on the critical path? When's that going to be there? And when do you want to be done? And does that line out? How is that work going to sequence? And if your windows have 18-week lead time, does it make sense to start the job in, 5 months before that? Oh, maybe, but their windows might not be here. I don't know. So looking at what those predecessors are and just really making sure that you're identifying what's on the critical path, working from the back end. If the client wants to be done by Christmas, can we make that happen? Sure, we could if we work every Saturday and all these days. Then going in, that's not achievable, or it is achievable. And basically build your schedule backwards is the best way I can describe that. And we participated in a lot of pull schedules when I worked in commercial construction, and then we actually brought it to our company, and we facilitate that with our subcontractors on these kind of massive builds or whole house remodels that have a lot of structural changes or roof line changes that we're working on. Yeah.
So putting that much detail into the schedule, how does that help the actual build process? This is probably I'm just kind of teeing up this question here because I'm assuming, certain things. But at the same time, we've just gone through this COVID season where all of a sudden, everything starts shifting. And now it's like, now what happens, right? So I'm assuming that this greatly helped your builds, though, stay on track.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll work with a client that if we might be in permitting for 3 to 4 months because nobody's in the office, can't get a permit to go build. But if we already know what your window order is, like, let's move on it. Let's get your windows ordered. We might even do that before we fully bid out the job because, hey, this is the brand that you picked. This is going to be the lead time. That's going to drive our schedule. Let's get those ordered. We'll figure out and get the rest of the project priced for you. But let's look at those long lead items. So that was a huge proponent for us to continue to be able to build successfully during COVID, and knowing those pieces. And how do we resequence work? If you're scheduling the entire job in the forefront before you go build, what's on the critical path, and you're calling that vendor every day. Hey, is this still on track? Is this going to be here? When's my delivery date? And if that moves, what other pieces do you can resequence to work around that?
Sure.
And then the goal in that is that you're being more proactive than reactive. We're an industry of reaction. And if we can try to just be a little more proactive about it, it makes the decisions of reaction a little bit less.
For sure. Absolutely. And I would say, in my experience, having worked in the industry and then also, helping builders and remodelers all over the country, usually schedule is where we start to see the biggest frustration from homeowners, right? When they're not sure what's happening or when something's happening, or it looks like the project's sliding and I'm not getting communication about that, right? I mean, schedule is, the heartbeat of the whole thing. So if it's not beating correctly, then there's going to be other problems that come up. So I think it's really smart that obviously you guys prioritize that and put so much effort into that. I'm sure, again, you've seen dividends on that. So
yeah, and just expectations. Clients just sometimes don't understand. If I change all these things, why did my end date change?
Right.
Why is it you still won't be done in July?
Right.
And being transparent with that. You can change your mind, but being upfront on that. I put a change order together. This is going to impact your schedule by 14 working days because I need time to go do that work. And if they're approving it, that goes on a schedule activity. Now it's change order 5, window casing, 14-day schedule impact, or for example. Then they can very much see this is why my schedule moved. Because then you're not having those awkward conversations of why won't you be done by this date?
Yeah, that's good. So as you're working with clients and your team, obviously you are a leader in the company. So if we can spend just a couple minutes talking about your leadership style, I always like to know kind of, how do you approach your team? How do you approach clients? How do you lead them? It's a challenge for all of us, as business owners, because we've got a lot going on. So how are you investing in yourself in this process? Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, I actually didn't even know this was a leadership style until I read Leaders Eat Last a few years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a leadership style. I grew up with parents that owned a company, and I learned that from example and how they ran their business, and having that I'm going to be here with the team till the very end, sweeping the trash and picking things up and getting, nothing's above anybody else, and showing that to the team. And that's definitely how I lead, making sure everybody's got what they need to do their job. If that means that I'm giving up my monitors because somebody's broke, like, here, take it. You got what you need to do your job.
Yeah.
And I didn't even pick up that was a technical leadership style, but that's definitely how I operate. And then with clients, I try to let our PMs run with as much of the client piece as well. I joke if I'm involved, it's probably because there's a problem, but I try not to let it be that way. There is a support to my PM and to the client, because we very much invest in DISC or a Myers-Briggs,
Sure.
if anybody's familiar with that,
Yeah.
and how you like to receive information and how you give information. And we really look at that when we have a client. What PM's a good match for that client? Are they going to like the way that they communicate or how they deliver information? So we very much invest in that aspect when we're looking at the client and our employee relationship, and then just making sure we're coaching the employee through that. Hey, this is that style. They kind of need a little more hand holding, or they need more communication because that's just who they are. Mm-hmm. And supporting those pieces and making sure I'm there for the team in whatever capacity that they need me for, to make sure emotions don't get too high. It's an emotional business.
It is. There's a lot of moving pieces. And I think the emotions come from it in the fact that, like, we're building home, right? We're building the place where, I mean, if you think about it, it's like usually the biggest investment that somebody's ever going to make in their life. It's the place where they lay their head at night. It's the place where they make so many memories. So it totally makes sense from, like, if you look at it from that perspective of like, yeah, this is emotional because there's a lot tied into this, right? And I think so often we in the industry, because we do this day in and day out, it's easy for us to forget that. So it's a good reminder, obviously, for your team, and kudos to you for obviously being on top of that and reminding, like, hey, this person obviously probably feels this way because it's their home. This is how they need to be addressed as you do that. So quick question, are you doing DISC assessments just for your team, or like Myers-Briggs for your team, or are you doing that for your clients as well?
We do it just for our employees, but we've been doing it for so long that we can kind of pick them out really quickly with the clients. Like, okay, we definitely know their style. We'll kind of look at what they do for a job. That's usually kind of a giveaway too.
Sure.
So we can pick it out. And then I always kind of joke about it. Sometimes it'll come up, like we'll say something about it, maybe Steve's DISC style or mine. And then the client's like, oh, I've done that too in my company, because they maybe work, at a company that they've done a DISC training or that kind of stuff. And so we'll get some more nuggets out of them. And we try to give that over to the team when they get ready to go to production of how that client likes to receive information. And we also set it as an expectation. So we'll do a kickoff meeting before we start a job, and we'll ask, how do you want to receive information? Do you want us to email it to you? Do you want a text message? Do you want a text message at the end of the day if I have something up for you? Do you want it when it's happening? All those pieces. So we're kind of setting that expectation of how do you want to receive information?
Yeah.
And I think that just sets the standard. And then they kind of get a rapport with the PM moving forward when there's a problem or a challenge. And I know people are passionate about two things, their kids and their homes. We got one of them. So
that's good. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Good. Well, so obviously being a co-owner of a business and being busy because you're also a mom and you've got your own kids to take care of, how are you investing back in yourself and in the growth of you and the growth of the company? What does that look like to you? How do you do that?
Oh man. So I would say on the professional side, we have a business coach, so that's a huge resource for us. We belong to a peer mentoring group, so just trying to grow as business owners and always kind of putting ourselves in the room with the people that are doing the things that we want to do or are going to elevate us. Yeah. So, whether that's being in the under 40 summit or, we were just at KBIS. And so putting that network out there of making sure that we're talking to the people that are doing what we're doing or reaching out and just trying to grow and learn. I think that's the best thing to do as a business owner, because you can always improve. You can always get better with what you're doing. And I think that just comes from the top down. You're putting into yourself, it goes to your team wants to do better, and it just grows the business. Personally, I'm an avid gym goer. I'm up at 4, I'm at the gym by 4:45. That's my time. I have 2 little kids. I have 2 boys, that's 7 and 4. And that is my only time in the day from 5 to 6 a.m. that nobody needs anything from me.
Yeah.
So that's how I fill my cup. I mean, I listen to my podcasts. I plan out my day. I'm very routine oriented. I do it on the weekends. That's my MO, but I'm able to put back into myself because all throughout the day, I'm just dishing it out. I'm giving it to other people. And so that's my time to, okay, I'm going to take a minute.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. On our first episode with Jared Pfeiffer, we talked about obviously taking care of yourself and making sure like you're okay and that you're taken care of. And, mental health is obviously something that is becoming a much bigger discussion topic in the industry and a much needed discussion topic in the industry. And the way you avoid that obviously is making sure that you have some time and space to yourself. And you, like you said, you're investing in yourself, which this is something that I think frequently gets lost when we're looking at things like that. People think like, oh, well, I'm taking time for myself, but that doesn't really help anybody else. But you hit the nail on the head because it does. It trickles down from you to your team. Your team sees that. They see that you're healthy. They see that you're passionate about something and that you're making sure you're taking care of yourself. So again, well done. The avid gym goer that early in the morning. Again, kudos to you for that. That's great.
My family knows it too. They'll be like, you didn't go to the gym this morning. Like, you need to go. You're back. Grumpy. Get out of here.
Yeah. That's so funny. I mean, it's good though. You've set that rhythm and that expectation. Again, going back to the expectation conversation, everyone just knows like, this is what I need in order to be successful in my day. And so like, it's good to have that set expectation because then again, everybody's aware of it and they all know you need it. And your family loves you. And so they want the best for you. So it's like no brainer. Yeah. Go hit the gym. Yeah. That's good. So, we talked about, you gave us a lot of stuff to unpack there, but let's dive into, kind of networking and getting connected with other people. You mentioned you're part of a peer group. We obviously here at the Builders Board have a kind of a similar system there where we have, an online forum basically that you go to. It's not like Facebook, but it's, a little bit more robust than that, where you can come on, ask a question. I'm assuming your peer group is very similar to that, where you can connect with people to get information from other people in the industry. Is that right?
Yeah. There's a larger group, and then we have what's like a micro group that has about 13 to 14 people in it. Other business owners, non-competitors, also doing whole house remodels, kind of similar volume in terms of revenue. And we actually meet 2 times a year, and we do that as a basically like an advisory board. Mm-hmm. So, it's full transparency. You bring all, your profit and loss, your balance sheets, your work in progress, and you put it all out there, and you it's a very raw, it's very, revealing. I think as business owners, you're very guarded. You're not talking about your revenue and your net with your competitor. So it's kind of this 2 time a year activity where you just kind of get to just put it all out there, and they give you good feedback. And it's been a huge part of our success and our growth in our company, because we're learning from people that have been doing this for 15, 20, 30 years, that have already made these mistakes, that want to give you that information, because they'll tell you, I made that mistake, don't do this, right? Or take my advice and tweak it what's going to work for you. But it's just this ability to, hey, I need this form, or has anybody run into this situation? And that ability to have those people in your corner.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's a huge difference in being successful for your team, and also just your ability to grow.
Absolutely. I love that you have committed to being a lifelong learner. Those people are near and dear to my heart. I'm one of those people as well, because you're always pursuing better, which means, again, that that affects you and it affects your team as well. But I love something else that you said. One of our taglines here is "Don't reinvent the wheel." And so it very much feels like that when you're a business owner and you've got a million things on your plate and you're stuck up against something that you're like, okay, guys, we got to gather around and figure out this. How do we, we've got this concept of this wheel. Like, how do we do this? And it's like, no, hang on. There's a whole bunch of other people that do this on a day-to-day basis. Like, why can't we just say, raise our hand and say, hello, has anyone else done this? That was the whole intention behind what we're doing here too. Just because we wanted to make sure people had an outlet. As you know, as a business owner, obviously you're with your husband too. So there's some camaraderie, and I'm sure that's great. But I also know a lot of people out there who are kind of solopreneurs, and it's like, you're out there by yourself. Who do you talk to? Who do you ask questions to? So tell me this really quick. So obviously you said there's vulnerability involved, right? There's time involved, and there's obviously an investment involved, but has it been worth it for you and the business?
Oh, tenfold. Anytime I meet somebody that is not a part of some kind of group, advisory group, that's my number one thing. I'm like, you need to join something, because it will give you that outlet, and even just the ability to kind of recharge, right? I call it the analogy of all the things are stuffed into the jar, right? And then the jar falls off and you're putting all the things back in, and you got to keep going. And so just that ability to have that as a resource, it changes how you're going to look at your business. I think it also is helpful because I think as business owners, you sometimes, especially when you're growing, or you maybe don't have as much staff, or you don't have as many people, you get too in the weeds. Yep. And so it's good to have somebody on the outside who's like, what are you doing working on your business and for your business, and not in your business? And so it's constantly, especially early in our start as business owners, that was so true for us, because I would get so caught up in the minutia of this job and this client. And if you're not looking at the bigger picture of where your business is going, you're not going to be able to grow, because you're so in the weeds. And I think that's really, really helpful. It makes us take that step back and do that. And so for us, we really found that 2 times a year wasn't enough for us. So we hired a business coach, and now we have a monthly call with a business coach, and even intermittent things that we might need. She's a great resource for us, and has really helped us elevate our thinking of, we're not just employees of Tankersley Construction. I do this, right? But I'm also up here on the org chart, and I need to make sure I'm looking at that from a whole standpoint and doing that well.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And I think that is a great segue into our action item of this episode, which, I would say, maybe I'll let you take a stab. If somebody's listening to this podcast and they're saying, okay, my one takeaway, the one thing I got to do, it's
join some kind of business mentoring, peer mentoring group, or hire a business coach.
Yeah, absolutely. It will go, you will go so much farther, so much faster doing it. And like I said, I think everyone recognizes, right? There's time, there's vulnerability, there's financial investment in it. But usually, I haven't heard anybody that has not told me this, the amount of money that they get in, they usually get at least 2, 3, 4, like you said, 10x more out of it. Just because, again, you're leveraging outside, you're it goes back to actually, let's go full circle to the beginning of the conversation. You said, obviously you and Steve are kind of staying in your lane. You're doing what you're really good at. You're bringing another perspective inside that to say like, hey, here's this other set of eyes that can take a look at the situation here and bring, experience and another perspective to your business to help it, go farther.
Definitely. Or things that you didn't even know, you didn't even think about. Right. And so a completely different set of experiences from what you've had. So,
yeah, that's good. Well, that's all the time we have today. That flew by. Thank you so much, Heather, for coming on. Again, for those listening, don't forget to check out your YouTube channel. We'll put a link in the show notes description there too. Also to that great book, Leaders Eat Last. That's a fantastic leadership book. And don't forget to follow Tankersley Construction on social media. We'll put a link in the show notes to their handles there. But thank you so much, Heather, for your time today and sharing your advice with the whole world.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to the Builders Board podcast. Please don't forget to rate and subscribe to the show. You can find this episode's action item and a link to the show notes in the description for this episode. We hope you have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next time on the Builders Board podcast.